a pleasure to be here. I'm the district governor-elect from 5580, and as you can see on the graphic, we have a lot of territory to cover. It's the first time we've joined NC Pets, and we're very pleased to be here. It is my great honor to introduce the person who will serve as the Rotary International President next year, not 2023, 2024. So he's the Rotary International President nominee, Gordon McInally from Scotland. And we have, thanks to our past district governor, Tom Gump, he prepared a little introduction slide or video, not a video, slides, so that you can get to know Gordon a little bit better. And so why don't we just start with that, the top 10 coolest things about RIPN Gordon. Okay, number 1 or number 10, he's from Scotland. Looks awesome. Number 9, he's a member of the Rotary Club of South Queensferry. Next, he has amazing stage presence. I don't know if Tom uses that picture for you or against you, but obviously you had a lot of spirit when you were up in Canada. Next up, now this I found really interesting. He's a master stick maker. Beautiful work there. Number 6, he has award-winning orange marmalade. Now, I do think there's going to be more of a story here. He's a bridge hanger. It looks like it might have been some kind of a fundraiser, and good for you for doing that. Number 4, he's a wine collector. Number 3, this is like kind of amazing that one person is doing all these different things. Gordon is a drone photographer and a videographer, a beautiful landscape to capture in Scotland. He's a very proud grandfather. And number 1, he's married to Heather. So with that, let me introduce you to our RIPN, Gordon McInally. Welcome to NC Pets.
Well, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for such a warm welcome, and greetings from One Rotary Centre in Evanston, where I've been attending this week's meeting of the Rotary International Board. It's a great privilege to be with you today, even if it's only on a virtual basis, and much though I would have rather been with you in person, but hopefully in the not too distant future, we may just get the opportunity to do just that. In addition to thanking you for your welcome, can I also thank Governor-elect Kay for such an innovative and different introduction. Kay and Tom Gump, you have clearly been doing your detective work, and if you ever decide to give up your day jobs, I can see a great career ahead of you as private investigators. I have to say, there is still a certain surreal quality about hearing myself introduced as the president nominee of Rotary International. I must confess, over the past few months, in the wee hours of the morning, I've often wondered if some mistake might have been made here in Evanston last August at the nominating committee for RI president, and that they really meant to choose somebody else. I guess we'll know the answer to that question in 2.5 years' time. Come to think of it, we might know the answer to that question in the next 15 minutes. I must say it's a particular privilege today to be speaking to such a large group of incoming Rotary Club leaders. With the greatest respect to all of Rotary's leadership, I believe that the Rotary Club leaders are the most important, as it's within the clubs that the work of Rotary is done. As I've been saying in many places over the past few weeks, the clubs are our bedrock. You're going to have so many opportunities during these pet sessions and on other occasions in the lead up to 1 July to become the very best leaders you can be, and to share with and to learn from one another to ensure you make your clubs the best clubs they can be. And of course, by being the best leader you can be, you'll inspire others to follow you in leadership. And by making your clubs the best clubs they can be, you'll inspire others to join Rotary, giving them the opportunities we have all enjoyed and allowing Rotary to do even more service at a time when there has probably never been more need for Rotary and for what it stands. As I prepared for today's event, I realized it was 31 years ago I was attending Pets in my own district back in the southeast of Scotland, preparing to serve as club president as a fresh-faced 33-year-old dentist who wanted to change the world. Rotary had its challenges even then, but these were days when change was resisted. And I found it very hard to change the way the Rotary Club of which I was a member thought or operated, despite my relatively youthful enthusiasm and optimism. I still remember the deathly silence as I brought my first address to the club as its new president to a rousing conclusion and unfurled a banner that had been made by my then 7- and 5-year-old daughters, Sarah and Rebecca, that said, "Just do it." The Rotary Club of South Queensferry wasn't quite ready to just do it back then. And I think at that moment, the members were wondering just what they were getting as a president. For them, it was very much a case of steady as she goes, and they didn't want their particular Rotary boat rocked too much. So that's why I envy you. And the fact that you are going to be lucky enough to be leading at a time when everyone is, or at least everyone should be, ready to embrace change. And embrace change we must, for without change, the future of Rotary could be bleak. Change can be daunting, but it can also be exciting and it can be energizing. So embrace it, thrive on it, because it must happen, and it must happen now before it's too late. The phrase "build back better" has been used by many of the world's governments recently to describe how things might look in a post-pandemic world. In fact, I think next to "you're on mute," it is probably one of the most commonly used phrases we've heard during the past 2 years. But as far as Rotary is concerned, it shouldn't be a question of building back better, but rather of building forward better. Building back implies a return to the way things were, but I don't see that as an option. We need to learn from our collective experiences during the COVID pandemic and take Rotary forward as we establish a new normal. It would be a tragedy if we don't learn from the past 24 months, a tragedy and a travesty. I don't need to remind you that not far short of 6 million people worldwide have died from the COVID-19 coronavirus. These people were mothers, they were fathers, they were husbands, they were wives, they were brothers, they were sisters, and in many cases, they were our fellow Rotarians. Surely there must be a better legacy for each and every one of them than for us to simply go back to doing things the way we were before this all happened. This pandemic has given us a unique chance to draw a line in the sand and review our entire method of operating. And I firmly believe that as we navigate out of it, there are many, many ways we can change for the better and strengthen our clubs, strengthen that bedrock. We've got what is probably a one-off chance just now to engage with those who, during the pandemic, have embraced the concept of volunteer service and have them join us to allow them to continue giving service. We're fortunate that there's now so much opportunity to look at club models that don't need to be bound by style of meeting or by geography or by suitability of a venue. In addition to helping us re-engage with our existing members, This will allow us to engage with a whole different audience, an audience that maybe doesn't want to meet every week, an audience that maybe doesn't want to dine, an audience that maybe doesn't want to meet face to face at all, but which would rather meet in a manner which suits them, an audience that wants to do things and be people of action rather than just meet for the sake of meeting. I see Rotary clubs, groups, call them what you will, existing everywhere in a style to suit everyone who has the desire to be part of us and help us fulfill our mission in the world. And that is why I envy you, as you have the power to use that flexibility to grow Rotary in your clubs and in your neighbourhoods, and in doing so give ever more service to those who need us. It's all about caring. We need to care for our members, new and existing. We need to care for each other so that we can care for the world. One special opportunity I would dearly like us to take in the post-pandemic world is the opportunity to work better together. I've always been a great advocate of continuity in Rotary. I've tried to practice it at every level of Rotary leadership, be it club or district or zone. I believe strongly in the concept of Rotary's years, plural, where there is a seamless transition between leaders, rather than the concept of my year, singular, where one individual takes us in one direction, only for other individuals to take us in different directions in subsequent years, before we often end up back where we started. Where individuals will not embark on any initiatives that do not complete in their year, because they are worried they won't get the credit for it. Waldo Emerson, the 19th century philosopher, said, "There is no limit to what can be achieved if it doesn't matter who gets the credit." And I agree with him. I'm not bothered who gets the credit for something, as long as that something is worthwhile and is done properly. And accordingly, I'm already working with President-elect Jennifer, and I look forward to doing so with my successor whenever he or she is identified in a true spirit of continuity that sees Rotary move forward on a straight and steady course towards an ever better future. And I would urge you to do the same in your clubs. And of course, as far as continuity is concerned, we could have no better tool in our toolbox than Rotary's action plan, which gives us the opportunity to look longer term and achieve the vision of Rotary and the Rotary Foundation by setting the 4 priorities to direct our work, namely increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participant engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. Now, I know you'll be talking more about the action plan in the course of this PETS, so I won't dwell on it now, but I cannot stress highly enough the value of using it as you build forward better in your clubs. My friends, and I hope I'm not being overly presumptuous in using that term, I know my time is limited, but I hope you will indulge me if I go slightly off-piste for a minute or two and say something about a topic that has been a continuous theme within Rotary for many years, and something that is in our very DNA, and that is the topic of peace building. I'm sure we've all heard the terrible news out of Eastern Europe overnight and today regarding the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And we were also informed at the board meeting only a matter of hours ago of the killing of 8 frontline polio vaccinators in Afghanistan. Peace is such a fragile commodity. We live in a time of unprecedented technological advances, but sadly, we also live in a time of destruction and human suffering. Rotary, with all its global reach, must help the world live together in peace and friendship and love if we are to leave a proper legacy for our children and our children's children. Humanity that has grown up scientifically and technologically now needs to grow up even more by pointing the whole human race beyond the petty divisions of nepotism, race, and creed. Far too many people in this world have experienced the atrocities of war and terrorism. Thankfully, Rotarians are committed to working for peace. And never forget, peace is more, much more, than the absence of war or armed conflict. Peace is freedom. Peace is healthy children and adults. Peace is clean water and sufficient food. Peace is education, human rights, dignity, clothing, housing, and concern for mankind. But most of all, peace is love. The late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, and I quote, "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that, we will be able to make of this old world a new world. For love is the only way." End quote. There is power in love. Don't underestimate it. Don't over-sentimentalize it. There is power in love. Power in love to help and heal where nothing else can. Power in love to lift up and liberate where nothing else will. Power in love to show us the way to live. If you don't believe me, just stop. And to use a word we're hearing a lot in Rotary circles just now, imagine. Imagine a world where love is the way. Imagine homes and families where love is the way. Imagine neighborhoods and communities where love is the way. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce where love is the way. Where love is the way, then no child will go to bed hungry in this world ever again. When love is the way, justice will flow like a mighty river. When love is the way, poverty will become history. And when the love is the way, there is room, plenty of room for everyone. Because when love is the way, when peace is the way, we actually treat each other like we're family. And what better aspirations could we as Rotarians have? What greater hope could we as Rotarians give to this world than a sense of love and peace and family? As I've traveled around on a virtual basis over the past few months, I've often quoted the late US Senator Robert Kennedy, and I make no apologies for doing so again today. Kennedy, whilst addressing the University of Cape Town in South Africa in June of 1966, said, and I quote, "Like it or not, we live in interesting times. They are times of danger and uncertainty, but they are also amongst the most creative of any time in the history of mankind. And everyone here will ultimately be judged, will ultimately judge themselves on the effort they have contributed to building a new world society and the extent to which their ideals and goals have shaped that effort." End quote. 56 years on from Kennedy's address, in these current times of danger and uncertainty, let us recognize that they are also among the most creative of any time in the history of Rotary. Let us make sure we are judged on the effort we have contributed to rebuilding our broken world and the extent our combined ideals and goals have shaped that effort as we imagine and then create a more peaceful world, utilizing all the many tools in our Rotary toolbox. I close by returning to my two daughters. When Sarah and Rebecca were very young, they used to measure the time until major events in their lives by sleeps. It was never a week until Christmas, it was 7 sleeps. And it was never 2 weeks until school term ended. It was 14 sleeps. So please don't be surprised, and certainly don't be frightened when I tell you there are precisely 127 sleeps left until 1 July and the new Rotary year. I'm anxious that during next Rotary year, Rotary in your clubs, Rotary in districts 5580, 5950, 5960, 5970, and 6000, and for that matter, Rotary throughout the entire world should have its best year ever. But I don't say that for the sake of President-elect Jennifer Jones. Neither do I say that for the sake of District Governors-elect Kay or Dale or Lloyd or Dawn or Steve. And with the greatest respect, I don't even say it for any one of your sakes. No, the reason I want next year to be Rotary's best ever is that by being so, when we all look back on the 30th of June 2023 at the projects we've carried out, at the causes we have championed, at the people whom we have served, at how we have imagined Rotary, at the peace we have built, we will do so in the knowledge that we have done our best for the sake of the people who needed us most. We will do so in the knowledge that we have improved their lives, and in doing so, have made the world a better place. Please grasp the opportunity you've been given to lead in your clubs. Be brave and be strong as you imagine Rotary, and above all, enjoy doing it. Thank you once again for this opportunity to meet and to speak with you. Thank you for all you do for Rotary. I wish you every success during the years ahead, and I look forward to working alongside you. Each and every one of you is a credit to the badge you wear, and I am proud, very proud, to belong to the same organization as you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you can't hear the applause, but it's out there. I can tell you that for sure. Let's see, unmute myself. Okay. Thank you for that wonderful message. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. Somebody put in the chat, and I got to read it to you here quick. Boy, there were so many comments, but and the people said amen. So there you go. We've invited some of the president-elects and others who are participating to ask you some questions. So we're gonna, I'll say their name, and then they're gonna pose their question to you after Kathy is nice enough to highlight that person. So we're gonna start with Haley Bayline. So Haley, do you want to ask your question?
Of course. First off, thank you so much. That was such an inspirational message. So the question that I have for you today is, bridging the gap between Rotaract, Interact, and other Rotary programs has been discussed thoroughly, but no plan has been put into action. Lack of connections to Rotary clubs and financial constraints are two large reasons this gap is so drastic. What is your plan to bridge the gap and encourage Rotary alumni to continue their Rotary journeys?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the question, Haley, and I think it's a very important question. I think it's essential that we have follow through from Interact to Rotaract to Rotary. And, you know, it's probably one of the biggest challenges we face just now is that transition. But what I've been lucky enough to see in many parts of the world is where it works. And I think it's important that we draw on these experiences and draw on the best practice that works in many parts of the world to spread that round the entire Rotary world. I see it working particularly well in a place like Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, there is almost a seamless transition between Rotaract and Rotary. And a lot of that comes from the fact that they work together all the time and they treat each other as equals. And I think that's probably one of the things I would like to get across, is that we are all on the same page. We all have the same goals and ideals, and therefore we're all equal. Even if some of us have grey hair and some of us have less grey hair, we are all equals and everybody's contribution is valued. And it's important that the Rotarians listen to the Rotaractors and the Interactors. But by the same token, it's important sometimes that the Interactors and the Rotaractors listen to the Rotarians. So I think that's my aim, is to break down the strict barriers between these three elements that you describe, and for everybody to be considered an equal. We're all part of the one team. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your question, Haley. Next up, Sharon Bloodworth would like to ask you a question.
Welcome from the wonderful state of Minnesota. So what do you think the secret of success is for a great club president?
Well, I think the secret of success, and first of all, I don't think you originated from the state of Minnesota, Sharon.
I am a transplant.
I detect you might come from my side of the Atlantic.
Correct.
But what do I think makes for a successful club president, did you say? I think that is to build a good team around him or her. The whole point is that it is a team game, and we all have individual strengths, and the importance is to seek out the strengths in your Rotary club and to make sure that you bring these people onto the leadership team and give them the opportunity to develop those strengths and to make the job of the team. Because we are all different, as I said before, we're all different ages, but we all have different talents, and nobody has every talent. And so we all come together, and it's the strength that we have in being together. So I would say for any club president, what they should do is work to build a team. And if I could hark back to what I said in my address about the importance of continuity and working with your successor and also with your predecessor if possible, and make sure that you move Rotary forward together and adopt a more strategic approach rather than just working in a one-year silo where if it can't be done by the 30th of June, we're not going to do it. That really frustrates me when I hear people taking that approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for your question. Well, I have a quick question for you, and my Rotary friends would be very disappointed if I didn't ask you this. Any thoughts on how we can increase the percentage of women members in Rotary?
Well, we have to go out there and ask them. And I do have a view on that actually, and it comes back to Rotaract again. As you know, at the moment, in fact we heard at the board this week that we now 25% of Rotary Club membership worldwide are women. 52% of Rotaractors are women. And the interesting thing is that you don't hear Rotaractors talking about women Rotaractors. They talk about Rotaractors. But in Rotary, we still persist of talking about women Rotarians. And it's almost as if it's a subsection of being in Rotary. Nobody calls me a man Rotarian, but everybody talks about women Rotarian. And we've got to break down that bounds, that there is no difference between a woman Rotarian and a man Rotarian. And if we're going to have true gender equality, we need to break that barrier down. But in terms of how do we attract more women to join us, I think it is simply a case of being open and realizing that women are in the workplace, women are in the communities, and therefore have to be part of us. But maybe we also have to make our clubs more attractive to women members as well, and make it more open. But I think it is one of these things that we're getting there. I think we've got a huge bonus this year in that we're having a woman president for the first ever time. I'm looking forward to being the first ever man president to follow a woman president as Rotary International president. But so I think Jennifer's going to make a huge difference in breaking down barriers, and we are getting there. But we just have to have a more open approach. And you know, women and diversity, if I can digress slightly, diversity is not just about women, it's about all minorities. And it's important that we are open to all minorities in Rotary. If we're going to be truly diverse, it goes way beyond gender equality.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call on Shelley Crawford.
Thank you very much, Kay. Mine's a more serious sort of question, and I just wondered if Rotary ever becomes involved in situations that are unfolding in Ukraine and Russia at the moment. Is there anything in the short term that the clubs can do to make a difference in this terrible situation?
Well, it's interesting you should mention that, Shelley, because just this morning at the board meeting, as you probably know, John Huco, the General Secretary of Rotary International, originally lived in Ukraine. He's got family living in Ukraine at the moment, and he was telling me this morning that he spent most of last night on the telephone to his family in Ukraine, finding out how they were, first of all, making sure that there's some sort of contingency plan to try and get them out to Poland if necessary. His daughter, who's currently working in Paris, France, was telling him that she's got friends who were sheltering in an underground subway shelter. So it has brought it home to all of us, I think, just how important it is to address the issue. And John, in conjunction with the director for that zone, are, as I speak, formulating a plan to coordinate the Rotary clubs in Ukraine, find out what they need, how we can meet those needs. And so I think even over the course of the next few days, you'll find a lot of information coming out. But gosh, we do need to help these people. Some of the stuff, because I've only been over here for 4 days, I'm still almost operating on UK time. So I'm waking up very early in the morning, and I had the TV on this morning, and it was just horrendous, some of the stuff that was coming in on the wires this morning. We have to help these people. And we will.
Thank you.
Very well said. Well, our time is so short. I know that I speak on behalf of the 340 people who are on this Zoom call today to show our appreciation for the time you've spent with us and your message. And I look forward to being at a lot of other Rotary events where we get to hear from you again. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It really has been my pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.